Hello, and welcome to episode number 15, the Steve Van Buren episode of The Checkdown, brought to you by The Painted Lines. I'm your host, Shane Half, and you can follow me on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. Make sure you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on Twitch so you can catch all of our broadcasts. So let's get into it. Today, we are power ranking the wide receiver groups of the NFC East. We've previously done videos and articles about quarterbacks and running backs, so make sure you check those out if you've missed them. So number one on the NFC East power rankings is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have the trio of Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup. Last season, Amari Cooper had 92 receptions for 1,141 yards and 5 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb in his rookie year had 935 yards and 5 touchdowns, while Michael Gallup had 843 yards and 5 touchdowns. You could make an argument that the Cowboys have the best receiver group in the NFL. It's possible, but they by far have the best group in the NFC East. Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup both have had 1,000-yard seasons, and then they spent a 2020 first-round pick on CeeDee Lamb, making a strength of their team even stronger. With Andy Dalton at the helm after the Dak Prescott injury in 2020, they still almost had 3 1,000-yard receivers in 2020. Now, there's not a lot of depth behind that trio, and so if one of them went down, they could be in trouble, but likely they would still have the best group in the division, even if you removed one of the trio just based on the strengths of the other two. So I have the Cowboys with the best receiver group in the division, and it's not really even close. Now, their defense, which we'll get to later in this series, is really bad, and so they're going to have to win shootouts. And so I guess what I'm saying is if you play fantasy football, you want Dak Prescott and or one of these 3 receivers on your football team. At number 2, we have the Washington football team. The Washington football team has scary Terry McLaurin, who had 87 receptions for 1,118 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2020. They also brought in Curtis Samuel, who had 851 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. They drafted De'Ami Brown, and they have Cam Sims and Kelvin Harmon. So Terry McLaurin was a 3rd-round pick 2 years ago, and he's been the top target for this football team ever since. He had 919 yards as a rookie, and then he topped 1,100 yards last season, even though his yards per reception fell. However, he's no longer on his own. The football team signed Curtis Samuel to a 3-year, $34.5 million contract in free agency. Now, Samuel has been trending in the right direction in his career. His yards has gone up every season of his career, and 2020 was the best year of his career in yards, catch rate, and yards per target. On top of that, they drafted De'Ami Brown with the 82nd pick in the 2021 NFL draft, and Brown has a great vertical route tree. He's a physical guy, and he's yet another big play threat for an offense led by Ryan Fitzpatrick, who likes to chuck the ball deep. At number 3, we have the New York Giants. They have Darius Slayton, who had 50 receptions for 751 yards and 3 touchdowns last year, and Sterling Shepard, who had 656 yards and 3 touchdowns. But they also signed Kenny Golladay and John Ross in free agency, and they drafted Kadarius Toney in the 1st round. And so it's no secret that the Giants wanted Devonta Smith, but they were sniped by the Eagles, hat tip to the Cowboys for that, for Devonta Smith, and so they traded back with the Chicago Bears at 20 overall, added a 1st-round pick next year, and selected Kadarius Toney. Now, you could argue that they should have stood where they were and taken Justin Fields, but they have made it clear this offseason that they want to surround 3rd-year quarterback Daniel Jones with weapons. They signed Kenny Golladay to a 4-year, $72 million deal. They took a flyer on a former top 10 pick in John Ross, and they still spent their 1st-round pick on a receiver despite having Slayton and Shepard already on the roster. Now, there's questions about both free agent signings. John Ross has never panned out. In fact, he tried to transition to cornerback last year, and he sustained a foot injury in the process. And Kenny Golladay missed half of last season with a hip flexor injury. But there is no doubt that this is a loaded receiver room that gives Daniel Jones no excuses in 2021. And finally, at number 4, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles drafted Devonta Smith in the 1st round. And they returned Jalen Reagor, who had 396 yards receiving and a touchdown, Travis Fulgham, who had 539 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns, and they also bring back Quez Watkins, John Hightower, and Greg Ward Jr. Now, there is a ton of youth and potential in this room, as there should be, after investing consecutive first-round picks into the position, but there is no one who has proven that they can play at the NFL level. The top 6 receivers that I just named have 7 combined NFL seasons under their belt, and only 1 receiving season over 425 yards, and that was Travis Fulgham last year. Jalen Reagor really struggled as a rookie, while Quez Watkins and John Hightower barely got on the field. Greg Ward has reliable hands out of the slot, but he's a total liability after the catch, and honestly, he may struggle to make this roster. Travis Fulgham looked great for a season, but then he simply disappeared. And so if Devonta Smith is the real deal, if he's able to come in and contribute as a rookie, if Jalen Reagor takes that sophomore leap, and if the new coaching staff can get Fulgham back on track, this could be a really exciting trio moving forward. But it could also be a terrible year if none of those things happen. If Devonta Smith struggles with the transition and his size, if Jalen Reagor doesn't take that leap forward, if Travis Fulgham was just a flash in the pan, it could be a really long year for Jalen Hurts and for this Eagles offense. Well, that's going to do it for episode number 15 of the Checkdown. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube so you don't miss the next episode, and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the receiver rooms in the NFC East.